there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation magazine. This is what it used to look like. We're digital now, but let's see what this is. This was September, October 2019. Mr. Dave Garvey, Vice President of Food and Beverage for Casino Hinckley. They're up in up towards the border up in Minnesota. So, Mr. Garvey, thanks for gracing the cover. This was another great looking issue. This was 196 pages. This was a whopper. Let's see what I was doing. Oh, this is a really good picture. I was in Memphis on Beale Street and by the Big Guitar right down from BB King's restaurant. We did our executive retreat there. And anyway, very, very cool. And it was a really, really nice event. But I always like holding the magazine in my hands to see what's going on. And it looks like I had a little more hair and I wasn't as gray there in that picture, but you know how it goes. But really great looking issue. But don't miss the printer, don't miss the post office. Been digital since then. Get a lot of people hit our site every month. Consuming content. We've become a destination point in our commercial construction renovation niche. And thank you to everybody out there that finds us on the web. Couldn't have done it without you. So we appreciate you finding us there, not only for the magazine or content, as also our podcast, Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Today, I've got a nice lady. Her name is Elizabeth Ruggles, and she's an ADA specialist, and she's with Charles Taylor. Elizabeth, say hello to our audience out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk.
Hello, everybody. Dave, my last name is Ruggles.
Ruggles. Oh, Ruggles. My apology.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you for the pronunciation. And Elizabeth, what part of the country are you out of?
We're in Golden, Colorado.
Golden, Colorado. We were talking before, and just wanted to make sure. Mile High City, one of my favorite places. Coors Brewery tour. You got there's a little place you go up Route 6. Right before you get into Golden, and then they have the bobsled on the concrete. It's called Century Park. It's like a little old shopping center, but you take the chairlift up with your bobsled. It's got wheels on it in the summer. I was an SAE fraternity, and we used to take all the pledges up there, and we'd roll down and thank guys it. But it was the best thing. I looked it up the other day because I had someone else from Denver a couple of weeks ago, so I looked it up to see if it was still in there. And they closed it during the winter, obviously, but they open up during the spring and summer. So I'm glad to see that it's still there. And some of my best times were in the Mile High City. Just had a great time there. And Golden is an awesome, awesome town. Is the Montgomery Inn? Is that place? Is that restaurant? The Montgomery Inn, I think it was called. It was like a really nice restaurant. It was like a landmark. Is it still open in Golden?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that was one of
the. Very much.
Yeah, they had some really good ribs and steaks, and we used to hit that place here and there. So anyway, but well, we appreciate you being our guest. And the way it's going to work is we're going to do this in 3 parts. You're going to tell your story, where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you ended up, at Charles Taylor. Then we'll talk about lessons learned over the last 3 years of the roller coaster that we've all been on, and any positive thoughts, and and so forth. And then you'll leave us one positive thought or phrase in your contact info, and then we'll close out the episode. But before we go, I do have a sponsor real quick. Our sponsor today is Magic Mind. And for those of you who don't know who Magic Mind is, this is kind of the replacement for all you guys out there drinking those energy drinks and drinking all that caffeine that's not good for you. And the whole story, the premise behind this guy that invented it about 10 years ago, he was highly stressed and went to the doctor, and the doctor said, how much coffee do you drink, and this and that. And he just did all this investigation, and he created Magic Mind. And Magic Mind gives you more clarity. It doesn't give you that jittery. It's made out of 12 natural ingredients, and it takes about 3 days for you to kind of, build up in your system. But I'm telling you, I take vitamins in the morning, and I get that jittery kind of feeling, and this is awesome. So if you're a heavy coffee drinker, or you don't like that kind of feeling and so forth, stuff is really, really great. You get it in the naturals, in a lot of the natural food stores, they're on the shelf and so forth. But they call them shots. Some people they'll drink about a half a bottle, and in the afternoon, if they think they need a little boost, they'll drink the other. They call them shots, actually. But I'll put the discount code in the description, and if anybody wants to try it, I think that you'll find it very, very helpful, beneficial for your health, your stress, your clarity, your clear thinking, and it really does work. I don't promote anything in my magazine or on this show or any of the events that we do. Anything, I always try it before I endorse it. And this stuff really does work. It is actually amazing stuff, and that's why it's magical. So that's why they call it Magic Mind. So, like I said, I'll put the discount code in the description, and hopefully you'll try it out there. So, Elizabeth, tell us your story. Where you grew up, where you went to school. We want to hear your story. The floor is yours.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. So thank you very much for having me on. So I actually grew up in a real small town in West Texas that no one has probably ever heard of, called Hawley, Texas. Exactly. From there, I went to Texas Tech University. It was
Go Red Raiders.
Hey, thank you. Good up.
Yeah.
So my passion has always been architecture and accessibility. It really does just come naturally to me. But whenever I guess you want to know how I kind of went this direction. Whenever I was young, my father had to have his back fused. He was injured in an accident and he had to have his back completely fused. So growing up, I've watched him go from a very vital, active person to decreased mobility. And as time goes on, and even now, his mobility has become extremely decreased. So just being in this world and watching somebody you love struggle to get around does I don't think you realize it in the beginning, but it really does impact how you view the world. So whenever I was at Texas Tech getting my architectural degree, they offer a lot of courses in accessibility. And I took all of them I could, enjoyed every one of them, learned a great, great deal from them. And then once I graduated, started my internship, I very quickly moved into the quality control sector of the firm. And that would be doing autopsy quality control, checking the plans for, misspells, the whole bit. But a major piece of it was checking for accessibility, making sure that the design criteria were met. With that, I learned I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more to help people, to help clients, to just increase awareness for the accessibility. So I pursued companies that had just a dedicated sector and went to work for one of those companies being a consultant. And so now my role, and I've been doing that, I guess, for the last 15 years. So my role is 100% walking with the client and the design team. So we start off in the beginning in an ideal situation, which happens more times than not.
Planning stage, got to go there. Got to start someplace, right?
Exactly. So we start off in the beginning with assisting in the design section itself, making sure that early stages of design are fully compliant with whatever accessibility standard happens to be needed. Retail falls under one sector, multifamily, hospitality, even government facilities, all of these fall under a different sector of the accessibility standards. And so we start off in the design phase. We move into peer review. So once their construction documents are completed, I go through and I do a full peer review on those. Then of course comes permitting and then construction, and I walk with the construction team. Typically once a month, I'll go out to the construction site. We walk with the client, walk with the construction team, and check everything going in. Just that way, from beginning until opening, we make sure that we comply with all the standards and we have what is supposed to be an ideal product.
Yeah, you always want to be at the planning stage, and I always, like we were discussing before we got on, we're starting our empty nester house and doing the building, and it's just like, listen, before the drywall goes up, you want to make sure everything's in there, because you don't want to be cutting holes and then, doing patchwork. But uh, I always, people think that, architects, designers, they're just doing the drawings and what have you, but really, you guys are project managers today, because you're tied to the construction team. You're kind of on the hook for a lot of things, and walking that, the site, whether it's, a freestanding or in a mall set, whatever it might be, that you're there looking, because it's so much easier to fix things while things are going on than after the fact. And ADA and accessibility, it's like seatbelts. I grew up where, everybody used baby oil, no seatbelts, smoke cigarette, all this stuff. And now you look at it, and it is so important, that, because there are people like your dad, that had accessibility issues, and you have to have, if you were in those person's shoes, you would want to have that accessibility access, or being more user friendly, whatever words. It's such an important topic. So I admire you that you went in that direction. And so let me ask you, with your father, when he fused his back, was he still able to walk, or was he in a wheelchair, or not to pry? I'm just
No, it's
curious.
no problem at all. He's actually still able to walk. He's in his 70s now. He's never lost the use of his legs. It's kind of scary to watch him drive because he can't look over his shoulder. But
I didn't hear that. No, I'm just kidding.
no, but there was a change. We would go to parades and he could carry me on his shoulders, down to the parade, and I could be able to see. And then, of course, afterwards, that was not going to be the case. So he was never going to be able to carry me on his shoulders again. Um, Whenever it comes to playing, with the grandbabies, he's not able to get into the floor and play with the grandbabies anymore. He still has a vibrant life, but just growing up with it, you can see that it changed. It changed things. It changed him. A perfect example is we went to go into a restaurant, and this restaurant had a very long switchback accessibility ramp. We got about a third of the way up it, and he turned around and said, "I'm not doing this." And we
Hmm.
left. He physically could not walk into this restaurant any longer. And that's heartbreaking. Yes, the restaurant was compliant with the accessibility standards, but because I believe the design probably could have been better, um, they ended up turning away clients. And that's never
Hmm.
a good thing.
No, no. Listen, like I said, it's evolved, ADA and all the codes and standards over the years. They definitely have increased in awareness, and uh, if you're not cognizant of it, it can be detrimental, because one customer that you lose is one customer too many, in my opinion. It's like, if I ever make a mistake, someone sends me an ad and they have a typo on it, and when we were printing the magazine, I couldn't take the magazine back. Digitally, it's so much easier to fix things. But even if I didn't even make the mistake, and they had an artist that created it and they sent it to me, I'd reach, if I saw it, I would say, "Hey, I was looking at the proof, and we already posted the web, or I printed, hey, listen, we're gonna fix it, and we're gonna make the make good, and don't worry about it, even though it wasn't my fault." Go, anything that happens, customers are golden. They are just too hard to go out and find these days, because they have so much competition, and they can hold a grudge, or they can write a bad review about you, or whatever. So I went to the forefront of anything that we ever, at least with my company, we want to, if there's anything that has to be dealt with, we want to nip it in the butt as quick as possible, and keep everybody happy camper, because one customer, it's just one too many. And it's a shame that, but you know what, your dad had every right to do that, and if he was in pain, or if he was, whatever the circumstances were, that was revenue that they lost out their door, and that's not a good thing. And um, The biggest thing that I think with ADA over the years, whether it's steps or ramps, you look at hotels with pools, they've got to have the lifts in there. And it's very tough because some of the older buildings that are getting reused, those are the ones that probably need a lot of work. And the developer or the owner, the real estate person that owns it, it's going, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But it's well worth putting all that in there so that, a person like your father, when they come in there, they can leave the property going, hey, you know what? They thought about everything. And that's where you come in, correct? So
It is.
nothing is built, right?
It is. And you talked about the design team, and there's so many pieces that a design team needs to keep up with. You're exactly right. They are the manager of the entire project. They have to keep up with the plumbing codes and the electrical codes and just everything. If it's one piece that I specialize in, they can come to me, they ask me questions, we walk through it. It's just it's a helpful hand, and that's all I want to be. I don't ever want to walk into a design meeting or on a construction site and for somebody to look at me as, oh, she's overbearing or she's trying to control anything. That is not the goal. I want to be a team member. I want to be a vital part of the project, and I want to just be a helpful hand to make sure that everything is successful.
Absolutely. Um, did so transitioning, you come out of school, you're with Charles Taylor, you get into this niche, and you're out there. March 2020 comes into play, everything gets shut down, and here we are 3.5, almost 4 years later, and it's we're still talking about it. Uh, tell us how you weathered the storm, basically, and any lessons learned that our listeners out there in commercial construction coffee talk might find of interest that your team out there in Golden kind of had to deal with stuff.
Well, we're still dealing with stuff from that.
Yeah, I know that.
So yes, this whole big transition happened, and I was busier than I've ever been in my life. The reason is, so I do the full gambit. Yes, I was talking about the construction side of it and working with the design team. Also, I do property condition assessments, which is where you go into an existing property, you review what's there, like you talked about older buildings that need to be upgraded. So we review what's there, and then we walk through and make a design plan to bring this up to current standards. Well, while everything was closed, they were taking advantage of this and upgrading their facilities. So I was extremely busy. Now that we've transitioned back to everybody being on the construction sites, we are having projects that were designed in the 2018, permitted then, but now that we're having to go back into permitting, they're having to change their designs to be to the current standards. ANSI 2017 was adopted here recently, which has quite a few changes compared to the ANSIs of years past. So now we're trying to sort through what are we allowed to do permitting wise, what are we allowed to keep, what has to be changed and moved to the current standards out, sometimes out in the field. I've got several design build projects going on where originally we started off as design to be built, and now because of that it's a design build in the field, which is a challenge.
Yeah, a lot of people that, listen, from March 2020 until today, the firms, like I like using hospitality as an example. A lot of the hotels, depending on what state that you're in and what the regulations were, if they were like if a hotel does a renovation, they normally do a floor by floor so they can keep the hotel open. But if they were shut, if they were, things were, kaput, they did their FF&E, they did the upgrades that they needed because, the building wasn't being used. And so when the country reopened, that the facility would have been was up to code, or, had a new facelift, basically, new paint, new FF&E, carpet, whatever. And those companies flourished over those couple years. Some of the other firms that were deemed essential, they didn't have that opportunity because they had to go on with business. But the ones that took the advantage of it, they're the ones that were very, very smart in getting things done, realizing that that the whole roller coaster, the ride was eventually going to end, and that we were going to get back to normalcy. But they took advantage of time and the facility being not having the customers in there, and making the facility that much more advantageous. So when it did reopen, that they would probably make back that revenue little by little, and hopefully get caught up. And you're a crucial cog in that whole process of getting that thing. So kudos to you, because there's so many buildings out there that that I've gone in over the years, and I'm like, God, why did they do that? That just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like the window on a plane. I always sit in the exit row, okay? Not because I want to be, safe. It's just I want to be able to get that window open, and it normally weighs 45 pounds. So I wrote, I live in Atlanta. I'm out of Atlanta. I'm a Yankee living in the South. So I've been here since '92. But they call me a damn Yankee because I stay here. Half the people in Atlanta are not from here. So we're all transplant. So, but I always sit in the exit row. And one time, the flight attendant said, they give you the little spiel, hey, can you pick that up? And yeah, and I said, oh, I'm just going to throw it out the window. She goes, oh no, Mr. Corson, you have to sit there on the seat. And I said, no, I'm going to throw it out the window. You get another one. And she said, no, I'm going to have to move you. I go, man, I'll put it on the seat. So she left. I look at the guy next to me. I said, do you see this diagram that the FAA put up here? This is just crazy. Why would I put that in the seat when everybody's going to be trying to get through this little hole in the wall that some people can't even fit through, number one. But number two, it's in the way. They can always get another one. Like when the plane went down in the Hudson and they hit the bird strike, Captain Sully, they had the movie about it. I guarantee they didn't worry about putting that window on the seat. They went into the Hudson River. And so I look at little things like that. You don't think about it. But number one, the reason why I sit there is because I want to make sure. So I wrote Delta, and I said, hey, listen, what you should do is you should have a demo area. And I'm a million miler, and I'll go down there and I'll show you that I can pick up the 45-pound window, and then I can fit through it. And then you can put it in my profile. And that way the flight attendants don't have to go through the spiel. I'll be certified. I'm certified, and they can go along and doing other stuff. Now, they never reached back out to me, and I don't know why, but I thought it was because I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And my son is in aeronautics. He works for Boeing, and he knows the story about it. And but I go in a lot of stores where I'm like, you know what, that doesn't look very user friendly, or that, and but it's up to code, and the code's always changing, and it's getting better. And sometimes it's a headache for the GC, because let's say he's been building for a brand for 10 years, and he's building, they're basically cookie cutter, but they all look the same. So if you go in a store in LA or Dallas or Denver or Atlanta, if you go into a store, where everything is, but they all have their different little aspects, but they're pretty much they're all the same. And the contractor is used to doing stuff, and then, oh, I've got to do this thing because this specialist said, we have to have that. But once again, it all goes back to the customer, because the customer is the most important person, and those initiatives are crucial. Even though some of the team members might not think that it's important, it totally is in the whole game plan. Am I right?
Very correct.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely crucial. You can, especially in the world we're in today, as you can turn somebody off very quickly. And with the media platforms that are out there, that can spread. And once it spreads, not only it's discriminatory. And that's the last thing you want to do is, you don't want to upset somebody. That's never anybody's goal. I don't think that's the purpose. But you could lose clients. You could lose very valuable employees. Just there's brilliant minds out there, and it doesn't matter that they may not be as mobile as you are. That's not what controls their life. So An example is I have one of my best friends, her husband is deaf, and he works for a very large company. And this company has been great about putting in the needed technology in the conference rooms to make sure that he can present and hear all of the lectures that go on in there. It's so if they had not have done this, they would have lost out on a brilliant mind to assist their company. And there was some, I mean, there's no reason not to. It's not that expensive. I mean, technology nowadays is fantastic. Well, one of the big things that I did learn just over time is that technology moves faster than the approval process and the printing process whenever it comes to the standards. The standards are a guide. They are the rules that are in place to make all of this happen. That way we're not all running around rogue. But at the same time, we should be allowed, and you do, take the technology into account, make it fit into the rules and the guidelines that are out there to increase productivity and the benefit of the property to assist people.
Yeah, I did an event in September of 2023, at the end of September in New York, and my keynote, he was the first uh, legally blind football player. He played at Tulane. He was a long snapper, and his name is Aaron Golub. If you're out there, Aaron, listening, how you doing? Anyway, he tried out for the NFL. It was a great story. But when I never, I didn't kind of know how blind he was. So he flew in that night. I had him picked up at JFK. They took him into the city, and he called me when so I came down to the lobby when he got to the hotel, and I hadn't been around basically a legally blind person. So the first thing I asked him, I said, "Can you see it all?" He goes, "I can't see anything in this eye, and this one, literally, it's like a little pinhole." And he was like looking at his phone like this, and he could kind of look. So we went to dinner a couple blocks down, and I didn't hold him, and he didn't have I don't know what you call the stick that the blind use.
The cane detection.
The cane, thank you. I was having the cane. Anyway, he was walking, but what I was doing, I was like so overcautious. I'm like, because it's New York, it's an older city. I'm like, hey, there's a curb there. There's a crack in there's the concrete's not even. So by the time I got back to the hotel after we were at dinner, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, hey, here's your Coke, and so finally on the way back, I said, Aaron, you were playing football with some big boys. I'm not gonna treat you like if you fall, I'm sure you've fallen a million times. If you run into something, I'm sure you've done it. I'm done doing this because I'm probably just driving you crazy, But I hadn't been around someone like that, and it really, really put everything into perspective for just an accessibility. Here's a guy that can't see. He's an athlete. The guy was buff, and but couldn't see. But he'd grown up with that hindrance, and he learned how to manipulate it and go on with his life and be productive. But a lot of people don't realize that, hey, if you don't have your sight, just like your dad, it's accessibility, with his back, that you really have to think about those kind of things. And just going those couple of blocks and then have them at our event, uh, like just typing it, and everything that he had to do. But technology is an amazing thing. It makes his life very easy. Like if he he can do audio to text, and on his computer, and but just traveling and stuff. It was I was thinking about all the things that he had to go through, and when he did his keynote, he talked about it. What sports can I play? What can I be great at with my deficiency or my hindrance or disability, and seeing him, what he had done. What the bummer was? He said, I missed the social media thing. I was about 10 years too early, because if I would have had my story today, he would be on an NFL team. They would have been milking him more. I've got the first legally blind long snapper, and it would have been the most amazing story. And but he's done pretty good for himself. But to me, it was a great 48-hour experience for me, from the time he came there to our event, and then he left, and then we did a wrap up, and it really was an eye opener. And then I thought about everybody else, whether If you're deaf, braille in the elevators. If you're in a wheelchair, like right now, I'm doing the empty nester house, and my mom's 84. So her mother was 102. I think Nana Goldie was her mother was 105. So she's got good genes. So I said, Mom, you got about 10 or 15 good years left. But as we build this house, we're going to build a little casita for you, and we're going to make it, ADA. We're going to have the walk-in tub, and we're thinking about it. And listen, I know you don't think you're going to come here, but if there's anything that you want to have in there, please tell me now, because I don't want to have to go in there and do any rehab and have to do stuff. We want to do it right now, so it's just perfectly set for as go into your golden years, that you'll be comfortable. And the last thing I would, on my wife's side, her parents are getting older, and anyway, the facilities are great and stuff, but if I can have her at home and be there, that's, it's just nicer to be. So I've had these discussions with her. She's like, I'm like, you really, when you're out there alone in Cave Creek during the winter, you really should put one of those chains around your neck. So if you fall, I can't get up, you have the emergency. And she's like, I'm not putting that thing around I'm like, I'm going to buy it for you. And if you don't want to do it, that's okay. I told you so. You should have it on you. But those are just little things that, that a lot of people don't think about. But if you're out there and you have older parents, listen, you got to have that discussion. I had this discussion last year on our 83rd birthday. My sister and I flew out, and we talked about finances and living wills. But we were building a house. I said, Mom, you just have to tell me everything you can think of that you want in there, as an older person, because I'm not, I'm right behind you by 20 some odd years. But the bottom line is, we want to make sure that it's perfect for you, and anybody else that comes in that might have that comes in there. So I'm all on that side. And the biggest thing, like in construction, it was a male dominated gig. The women are coming in. I have a women's column in my magazine, and I've had it way before everybody else had it. Copying is flattering in my book. So I was glad that I thought of all that. But what happened? I had a woman that came to me and said, why don't you have more women on your cover? And I said, that's a good question. So I looked at the circulation. You know what I found out? Half of my circulation was female. And I was like, gosh darn, wow, that was an eye opener. So, and then I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, all these men are like we had this discussion before we started. A lot of men design stores, but they don't do the shopping. The women do. That's just, not because they have to. It's just that's, I don't know, but whether the aisles are wide enough, or the dressing rooms are the way that they should be, it's just all these little things that you don't think about. And because female and men were wired differently, the way that we do things, and it's just an amazing transformation. I've been in publishing for 25 years and in construction forever. So I've seen all of these, as the industry has evolved, that more and more women have come into it, and they can put that womanly touch to the project, where if it's just all male dominated, we would miss things. So kudos to you, to do what you do. My wife's she's a contractor, but she's a color consultant. She's an interior designer. So she can do the plumbing, the electrical, and do the basement or the bathroom redo or whatever. But color consulting it's kind of you got to be born with that kind of vibe. Am I right?
Yes, because I don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I call my best friend to come help me paint my house, because I cannot. Kudos to her. I cannot pick out finishes to save my life. I look at spaces. I look at planning. I can see how somebody's going to move and use and circulate through this. Please do not ask me to pick out a fixture. We'd be in so much trouble. But everybody is different. And, with that, I actually enjoy taking classes, and there's classes offered out there. So I do a lot of formal education, and I do a lot of independent education. I try and make sure I get around 60 hours of continuing education a year at a minimum.
Oh, wow.
And with one of my favorite classes is where they actually immerse you into what is going on. So they'll put up obstacles. They place you in the wheelchair. They give you, certain types of glasses to help you understand what visually challenged appears, hearing impaired. Before I had children, I actually took a course where they stuck me in a pregnancy suit, because pregnancy can be considered a temporary disability. That was quite a bit of an eye opener. That's a lot of weight that, individuals
Hmm.
have to take on. But to take these courses where you're completely immersed, and normally they're about a 3-day course, but it just gives you a different perspective as to what is going on. Opening up a door in a wheelchair is very difficult. I got trapped in that door probably 6 times before I could ever get through it. And then to go into a restroom to circulate around. These are things that you typically don't endure unless you are forced to. So to go and just get an educational experience, it really helps me explain to my clients why the accessibility standard is the way it is written and what the purpose of it is, and to guide them. And once somebody understands, it makes it easier to then implement.
When we had Aaron as our keynote in his video that he opens his presentation with, he's out on the football field with his teammates, and he had these thick goggles that can basically duplicate what little sight that he has. So all these other, big dudes, they put on the goggles and, they can't see and they're trying, and it was an eye opener. I mean, people were they weren't laughing, but they were laughing at these guys because this guy's just, muscle memory and he's just, hiking the ball but they put the goggles on and they couldn't do it. And so, but like I said, it's just one of those little flares that, that womanly, look and feel. And like today, my wife had a site come her window shades that she's doing a project on. They came in and they were doing it, whatever. I went down there and they got all the swatches out there and they're looking at it. And I'm like, and I said, which one did you like? And she goes, oh, I like that one. I was like, well, why'd you like that one? Well, and she went into this whole spiel. I was like, oh, yeah, you know your stuff. I'm not, when we do the house, I'm going to deal with the drywall or whatever. Just, you pick the paint and we'll get it done, And so what's the coolest thing you see coming down the pike as we go, through the remainder of 2024 with accessibility that might be, something that our listeners might be that they should look for?
Oh, you mean in like the ways of technology
Just
or
in general,
innovation?
something might be coming up, a new standard or a new code or whatever that might be coming down the pike, or something really cool that you saw out there that everybody might want to think about.
So I actually just did a very long training on Proag, which is public right-of-way accessibility. And they are talking about, do you know what truncated domes are? They're the different color square with all the little dome circles on top of it that's supposed to be
Yes.
for visually impaired. Well, this is great for visually impaired whenever you're talking about traffic and crossing a street, but it's very difficult for somebody who's in a wheelchair because rolling across those can jar you and injure, and it's very uncomfortable. So one of the great technologies that is already out there and now is starting to be implemented more and more is vibrated pads. So you will hit the button to cross the street, and
So
then
they
as
don't
they
veer
walk,
off.
yeah, and then yes, as if a car's coming along, it vibrates to tell the person that they can't walk at that moment. So it's a win-win. For one, it's a lot more successful than them standing there listening for traffic and hoping that the Tesla is not too quiet. Um, Sorry, shout out to Teslas there, but
Okay.
electric cars are extremely, extremely quiet, and it can be a hindrance for somebody who is not visually able to see them, and then at this point cannot hear them because they are going to depend more on their hearing whenever it comes to walking and crossing the street. So now this pad will sense the car and vibrate to tell them that it's not safe. I'm loving this. I believe that it's going to create a lot more independence because, like you said, you wanted to lead Aaron around, and then you're like, wait, I shouldn't have to lead him around. He needs to be independent. He wants to be on his own. And that's what this newer technology is coming out is giving people. So it's giving them their independence.
I wouldn't be shocked if Elon had his hand in there in some way or fashion. You never know. The guy's got his hands in everything. So,
Yes, he
um,
does.
it, if anybody, if you're out there in commercial construction coffee talk and you got a project, whether it's a new build or a renovation, etc., reuse for an old historic building, and they wanted to maybe bump some questions off you, from an accessibility point, how would they reach out to you?
Actually, the easiest way is my email. Obviously, Charles Taylor does have a website. It's the Charles Taylor US office because they have offices all across the world. But if they wanted to reach me quicker, it'd be Elizabeth.Ruggles at Charles Taylor.
There you go. So listen, if you're working on a project, newer renovation, and you think you know ADA and accessibility and so forth, talk to this nice lady. She's on the forefront of it. She's lived it with her family. She's got a passion for it. And the last thing, like I said, the last one to do is finish a project and go, darn, why didn't I think of that? I should have ringed her, or messaged her on LinkedIn or whatever.
I am on LinkedIn.
Yeah, there you go. We're all on there. So if you have a question or you're thinking about it, or if you never had an accessibility consultant, it's kind of like insurance. I look at, what you do is kind of like insurance. You might not ever get in a car accident, but, and God forbid you do, but you have it for a reason. And there are good ones and there are bad companies out there for insurance. But the bottom line is it's a necessity. And if you're doing construction and you're going to build 40 or 50 of these things, the last thing you want to do is go back and fix something that you could have hired someone to find that and say, hey, you should do it this way. And listen to her. She's a professional. So that's awesome. Listen, if anybody wants to reach me, I'm at davidc@ccr-mag.com. Listen, Elizabeth's PR person sent me a press release. I like this ADA thing because, like I said, we had Aaron as our keynote, a couple of months back, and uh, send me something. Don't judge it. We post so much stuff every day. Send it to me. It could be an anniversary for your company. It could be a new product announcement. It could be a charity event that you're doing. Whatever. We look at everything and we post it. We index it on Google, we send you the URL, you share it. It's good for your SEO, which is search engine optimization. That's how Google finds you. And that's probably how they find, her PR person found me. And, it's a win-win. And listen, I answer all my emails. I might not get back to you right away, but, I answer them all. And God knows it's like a treadmill. I try to clean my email box out. And the minute I go to sleep, I come back in and I got emails from the other side of the world going, will you post this? I'm like, so. Anyway, as we finish up, if there was one positive thought or phrase that you'd like to leave with our listeners, what would it be?
Accessibility can be beautiful.
There you go. I'm right there with you. And it works too. It works for everybody, not only for the person that does have the accessibility, but also the people that are around you. Like I said, that I came home and I told my wife when I had Aaron, I said I hadn't been around someone like that. And it kind of just opened my eyes about just in general what people take for granted that don't have any disabilities, that if you do, and it could be a small one or it could be a major one, you got to think about these people, and it's a good thing. It just makes you feel good. So, and that's what I think that, that you're helping people, but it's a feel good thing. You're doing the right thing. So, right?
Yes, I do it because I really do love it. I find it passionate. I find it interesting. I'm probably the only person who, instead of picking up a pleasure book, I pick up a book about accessibility over history. I'm just, I guess, kind of a nerd like that, but I do love my work. I love the people that I work with, and it's my niche. It's my natural lead.
So as we finish up here, a couple things. Listen, if you're on the construction site, we want you to be safe. All right. We want you to get home, have dinner with your kids, your wife, your partner, whatever. And we want you to catch some Z's and go out and be able to go do it another day. Number two, we want you to stay liquefied. Okay. I'm drinking my electrolytes. I'm going to go out for my couple of mile run here. I already did one this morning, but I stay liquefied all day. If you get dehydrated, dehydration is the worst thing. I don't care if you're on the lacrosse, ice hockey, whatever, or on the construction site. Dehydration, get headaches. That's when accidents happen. We don't want that stuff to happen. So be safe on the construction site, number one. And number two, stay liquefied. Last but not least, hit that button out there and the like button. So the algorithms they'll find this thing and our show and her Elizabeth's discussion on accessibility. And we want you to come back and see future episodes as well. So hit that like button. Okay, we really appreciate it. So Elizabeth, when I come out to Denver, I'm going to look you up, and if it's during the summer, and we're going to go bobsledding at the we're going to go down there. That thing, I'll have to look at when I do your follow up and I send you the link. I'm going to send that the park because I looked it up. We had a guy from Denver, and we talked about it. He goes, "Oh yeah, I know that place. I've been there." I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that place was awesome." So, with that said. Everybody out there, listen, it's already February. Where did January go? Time went like that. We're already at the end of the first week in February, and it's going to be, before you know, it's going to be the holiday season again. So we want everybody, have a great year, stay positive. Don't let all the stuff that's good that you can't control, and surround yourself with positive people, and have fun and smile. It just makes you feel better. So Elizabeth, pleasure meeting you. I'm sure you're pulling for the Chiefs and Mahomes because he was a Red Raider, right, for this weekend. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, listen, when I was in Denver, I loved the Donkeys, but for Philly, all my teams are out. So may the best team win. If you're a Niners fan out there, go Niners. If you're a Chiefs guy, go Chiefs. And then go Raiders and go Denver Pioneers too. So Elizabeth, say goodbye from Golden, Colorado.
Bye, Betty. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And I'm going to sign off from Sugar Hill, just below the Buford Dam, about 25 miles north of Atlanta. And the lake has been full. It rained all week, and we're just about at full pull. And spring's going to be here, and the pollen's coming in a couple of months. And hopefully I'll be breaking ground by then. So with that said, everybody, have a great rest of the week and have a great rest of the year. And we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Elizabeth, great discussion. I really appreciate it. All right. And I'll see you in the Mile High City. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Ciao.